Hello everybody, this is Astro Dude and welcome to my YouTube channel intermediate series. And today we're going to talk about narrowband imaging. Now I've had a lot of people ask me about LRGB. They said, can you make a video on how to process and calibrate LRGB frames? Well, I don't have that equipment, and I mentioned that earlier in the 12-part series, the beginners. But thanks to a friend of mine, Steve Balke, he was nice enough to lend me his data set for narrowband imaging. So today, we're not going to cover LRGB, we'll do that later on. But today we'll take it a step further for those who have hydrogen alpha, oxygen 3, and sulfur. In this case today we'll let go of the sulfur, we'll just deal with HA. And hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3. So let's get started. So you've collected all your data. You have all your HA lights, and you have your darks, and you have your flats on each filter, right? And in the case of Altair Astro cameras, which is what I have, and Steve, Tim, and a few other my friends, we don't use bias. And now another friend of mine who's using ASI 1600 Tech Mono LRGB and narrowband also is not using bias frame. So this bias frame thing seems to be falling a little bit in the background, not to say anything about it. So let's get started. So we'll go to script and batch preprocessing. Now, last video I made, the first video I made, remember how we did all this manually, and you still can. You can go through all these steps, bypass the script, and create all your master flat, master dark, calibrate the lights, and there's no need to debayer because they're grayscale. You'll just have to star align and integrate. But here we're going to let Pixinsight do all this in one shot because this is intermediate series / beginners narrowband. So I'm trying to keep it simple. For those who have mono cameras, make sure you don't check this. See CFA? This is not a color camera. Alright, so first thing, let's add our lights. And we're going to be working with Steve's Veil Nebula. So let's go to HA first, all his lights. Okay, then we'll go to flats. And of course they have to be hydrogen alpha flats because that was the filter that Steve was shooting through. So he got all his flats. And then his darks, let's go to darks. Back and look for darks HA and all these. Now there's 12 of each, but I'm sure he must have shot 30, 40, or 50 of each. But for the sake of this video, we're going to keep it short. Okay, so remember when I taught you in beginner series that you should blink, and he probably blinked all his lights in HA and looked for any anomaly, and then more than likely ran through the subframe selector to pick the best full width half maximum, the best frame that would do it justice so all the other ones are lined up behind it. I'm saying that because I'm about to click on a frame here. Maybe I'll pick the fourth one. I'm about to double click that to put it as a reference, but because it doesn't say ref in front of it, in other words, I haven't sub-selected the very best frame out of all these, and it doesn't matter because this is not the point of this video, but I needed to mention that I just chose the fourth, and it's probably a really good frame, and his focus is incredibly tight. I was looking over his frames, so good job on that. Of course, you want to output all these calibrated files to a directory, and in this case, it would be HA calib select. Okay, so if we did everything right, and if you guys follow this carefully and you push diagnostics, what do you think is going to come up? Well, only one thing should come up. Perhaps two. But one will be you didn't select any bias. That's right, because we don't want any. Two, because you're doing 30, 40 frames, you should actually change your parameter here to Windsorized sigma clipping or linear fit. I leave this up to you guys to choose. Now that you've run through a lot of my videos, practice between Windsorized for over 10, 15 to 100. Sigma for 12 to 20, and linear fit clipping I love. It removes a lot of the high gradient things that are overlaid on your each frame like haze. So it's kind of already doing a DBE on the fly. Kind of like it. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it does. I'd have to read up more on it, but I use linear fit clipping a lot more lately. So let's leave everything at sigma. Notice that it shows my low for 3.5. Normally they reach 3. And my high, like the high brightest parts of the pixels, I drop from 3 to 2.9, even 2.8. And that helps remove any excessive saturation. All right. I am not going to hit run, because if I do, this will run through it and it's going to be an hour video. Because even if I did, you guys already know what's going to happen. It's going to create the masters, and inside that master, that file is going to show up. So I'm just going to go, I'm not going to exit. I'm going to keep here. You know that if you hit run, it's going to start running and it's going to go through. Now, this is HA. Now I'm going to select them all. I'm going to clear them. And I'm going to go add lights, because we assume we already finished that complete step. It already did everything it wanted. It went into HA Calib. In here, there'll be registered, master, calibrated, and inside the master, there'll be 3 files. There'll be a master dark, a master flight, and Lightbending. Lightbending is your HA final frame. So here you would go now. We're completely finished with HA. You have a master Lightbending file. Now we're going to go to O3 light. Select all the light oxygen 3. This, of course, is wrong now because it says HA. So we're going to go select the maybe third one of oxygen 3. And there they are. And we're not going to output it to hydrogen alpha because we're in O3. Change the directory. Go back. Select oxygen 3 calibration folder. Select. Perfect. So all these. Of course, the flats are the wrong ones, and the darks are the darks are okay because they apply to both. The flats should be O3 flats, dark flats. I mean, darks for the O3, and the lights are O3, and they will go into O3 Calib. And I've selected the third. This is okay. If we diagnose this, no bias frames have been selected, and of course the flats are probably the wrong ones. So that's fine, because I didn't go through the whole thing. You guys know this. You've done this many, many times. If you're a beginner, go back to my beginner series and go over the batch pre-processing. So again, I'm not going to hit run because it's just going to do what we already know it's going to do and end up with 2 folders. So I'm just going to exit this. Yes. Now let's double click, and if we assume that in HA there'd be a master folder here, and there would be, Lightbending would be there. And if we went to O3, there'd be a master file, and there would be Lightbending, and that would be there. Now, what I do is I go into these 2 folders, and I rename Lightbending right away to just HA. And this master O3 Lightbending to O3. And how does that turn up? Well, right here, see? HA. This is the final product of what we just did. Simulated, but it was done, because here it is. I did it earlier. So we save time. And O3. Because that just saved like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So there's the data from the veil, hydrogen alpha and O3. And let me just stop here for a second. Let's look at the detail, and let's look at how the ADU works out on here. In the hydrogen alpha, there's a ton of the nebula way up here. I mean, not even close to what they call the witch's broom, but way off to the side here. And way down here, there's little wispies. And that's in hydrogen alpha, which is why I can understand why people love using this filter. And it cuts through the moon glow, sky glow, anything actually, depending on what your values are of your nanometer. So if you're 12, then it's not as severe. In other words, it's not as strong or as narrow. And if it's 9, 6, 5, and 3, it's really narrow. And what happens with that, because this is now a lesson in astrophotography more than it is in Pixinsight, is that if you're using 3 and 5, you're going to have to double, triple your exposure. You're going to go from like 2 minutes to 5 to 8 to 10, because the bandwidth is so narrow. You have to increase the integration to just get that same amount of nebula. All right, so that's just simplifying why choose a narrow band filter from 9, 6, 5, and 3. The lower you go, the more expensive. Okay, let's look at oxygen now. Let's compare look at the hydrogen. A lot of flux. Look at the oxygen. It's like so much brighter, and the detail is so much more crisp wispy, or we can use that word. A lot of this stuff, the flux on the far top left is still there, but these little wispies way up on the very top right, just incredible. Like, where'd that come from? Like I said before, his focus is on the money. This has to be I didn't check the full width half maximum of this, but I believe it's probably in the 188, 199 to 2, maybe lower, which gives him credit for great focusing. So we have 2 frames. Well, that's nice. Now what do we do? Exactly. There's a variety of things that we can do to put these together to create the color image, and that's been my biggest, I wouldn't say downfall, but struggle the last 6 months, because I don't do HAO3 or sulfur. So I'm stuck with, all right, I have to figure out or read up something in my book or watch a few people online, say, what do they do to put this together? And you wouldn't want to use it on your fit, because all that would do is put HA or O3 over top, and that's not what we want. We want to actually create a color image in 2 bands, HA red and then the blue. So we're going to use, I'm going to try something first. There is a script, and I don't think it's in the new version of Pixinsight. In fact, we know it isn't. And it's SHO, which is sulfur hydrogen oxygen AIP, but it was in the older Pixinsight version, but 1.85 took it out, and it has a different name. In fact, if we just go here, I'm looking at here, I guarantee I can find it right off the bat, but let me look. I'm not sure if it's under process. Let's see, and it would be under like narrowband. Let me just see, maybe it's under utilities. So here's NB RGB. All right, so I haven't used this, so I have no idea what I'm doing. But for the sake of it, let's just see if we can enter in HA here and O3 here. And there's no blue channel, but let's just say we're going to try O3 again. It doesn't matter if this fails, it doesn't really matter. So the bandwidth here, I believe it says 7, but I think it's 6, and I believe you can also change it manually. So let's say they're all 6 nanometer, if I recall what Steve's. And again, there's no sulfur or blue, but you can simulate RGB. Now, I think in this case you have to push the NRBG to create, or RGB. Let's click RGB, and maybe it'll be an error. Okay, so nothing has been selected in color. Okay, and please select at least one source of narrowband. Guess we'll start with A. So there it goes. I've never tried this. I'm just experimenting right now, but in a minute I will go to what I actually do. And okay, so lots of errors. Once I figured this script out, yeah, everything's out of whack. Exactly. Just going to do it again. So I'm just going to cancel this. All right. So I have to wait till that's finished. Exactly. Oh, look at that. Pixinsight completely shut off. So now I lost everything. Oh, we're not going to do that again. We'll have to wait till Pixinsight reopens up. Take a few minutes or a minute or so. I'll just pause this and I'll be right back until I reopen my icons. Okay, I'm back. For some reason, that module crashed Pixinsight and had to reopen all. Yes. And by the way, my wife just made a good point. Make sure you save your hydrogen alpha and O3 filters or frames immediately, or you will have to go back to your Lightbendings and rename them and bring them back in. But these were already saved ahead of time. All right. So let's not try that experiment again. I'm going to go to try another one, another disaster. Let's have fun with this one. This is an older script that used to work really, really good. And it's no longer in Pixinsight. I got it online and managed to bring it onto my computer. So in here, notice it automatically detected HA03. Yes. I don't want to mix. You can select your master HA under mixing and your master O3, and it's recommended to drop O3 down to 70 or 80%. A lot of people use 80. I'm not anything special from anyone else. I'm going to choose 80. Of course, if you know anything about Photoshop, it has to be a layer. It has to be screened. I did try darken once. It didn't do anything wrong. It just made the image a little bit darker, but left some detail out. So if you're screening, it's like layering in Photoshop, like making a layer on top of another. So create luminance with masters A03, and let's do that. Hopefully it makes a colored image. Oh, okay. It created okay, it made a black and white image. That's fine. That's probably what we wanted anyways. So now we have three pictures. HA03 and a luminance layer. And I believe this is a combination of both. So let's just rename that. So this file here is a mix of, if we do HA03. Long name, but there it is. So now we have hydrogen alpha, we have O3, and we have the combine of all two. Now let's make a color out of all three. For that, we use PixelMath. And I believe I had prepared one, but when I crashed, I hadn't saved it. So now I'm in a little bit of trouble. Let's see if I can, yeah, that's going to be a trouble. Let's see if I can find something else here. I had another one made up, which is nowhere near what I have here. So let's see if we can experiment a little bit with this PixelMath expression. So we have HA. That's definitely, let me just open this up a bit. So we're going to enter the R, G, and B with HA03 and this mix file on 3. Again, we're going to try that. This here right now, if I leave that out, I'll just minimize that one there. This one right now will apply just these two, make a colored frame without the luminance file. What you need to remember is create new image, so make sure you click on that. Also in the drop down menu, make an RGB color image. And make sure that the names of these tabs actually completely has to match up here. You can't just say HA in caps or O3 in a lower. It has to match exactly what's here. So let's apply this. Let's hit the square button and see if this will create an RGB using HA times O3 times 1.5. It should work. Okay, so there's the result of HA03 with this specific expression. Now, if you want these expressions, I can mark them down the bottom. That's very, very nice. Now I'm going to close it again. And I'm going to close this expression of PixelMath. I'm going to open another one, SHO40, because you can practice making as many of you want, just changing the numbers here. And this is what I did earlier. In this case, let me open the third one. I'm just going to open the third one. All right. So HA on red, green will be HA at 0.4, O3 at 0.6, and for green. But for blue, I'm going to replace it with this all caps mix. Remember, you have to get it right on the money. Mix HA03. That's what it says right here on the side. Now, again, it's an experiment to see if this is going to turn out. The first way I did it was one expression. There's 100,000 expressions. Let's hit this, and if we can, let's see if we can get something out of hydrogen alpha at 0.4 and oxygen 3 at 0.6. Now I vary these a lot, and just adding little expression signatures, like let's say if I did here, divide that by half, it'll change the entire image. And if I said this, let's say divide by 1, again, it's going to change the output. So let's just try it first. Let's go ahead. So this expression makes the background a nice blue. And the other one that we had, I'm not sure if you can run two expressions at once, but if you do this, yes, look at the difference. So just changing the two values of the expression gives you two values. This one's very rich in color, and it has a reddish, more HA coming out, if that's because it's been, the HA has been mapped to the red and the O3 to the green plus the red, which gives you this nice greenish blue. These are all variations of what, as Steve put it, your personal preference. I like them both. I would work on them both, and I would correct them both in terms of either a little bit of background neutralization or adding the rest of the information. But here, I think what we just learned, just using PixelMath, is you can have this as a result, or this as a result, and they both fit on top of each other. And maybe, I don't know about this, but I wonder if linear fit would let us combine those two files together. I'm not saying it's supposed to or anything, but I want to try this. So, not much of a lesson, eh guys? More or less just experimenting here. So I'm going to take 6, and I'm going to drop it on 5. That's probably going to give me a geometry error, always does. If not, it'll actually go through, process, and come out with those two combined into one. In other words, mixing those two colors of the light red and the light blue into one full frame. Let's see what happens. It's doing something. Laptop's working overtime. Linear fit's almost like a LRGB combine. So what did it do? There's the original image. It made it darker, but maybe a bit smoother. Hard to tell. 6, 5. Yeah. And by the way, when you do that, if your 5 was blue, now it's dark red, you want to undo it. Just go undo. That should fix this and put it back to our lighter blue. Alright, so for now I'm just going to keep this expression up here. I'm going to keep this one up here. I'm going to close linear fit. I'm going to reopen this mathematical equation here. Not that one. That one is a blank one. Let's see if we have okay. So here's another value that I experimented with. Red, HA. Green, O3 plus HA times half, but then divide by 2. Then grab O3, put it for blue, so now we have RGB, and on the alpha channel, I changed it to, and I'm going to remove these letters. Why? Because they don't match HAO123. They don't match that. So again, different expressions up here put out different values. Let's see what the total sum of the color of the veil will be. Remember, create new image, RGB, apply, and you guys can experiment like crazy on just changing a few little numbers. If you say, well, what's with the division and the multiplication, and why are you... To tell you the truth, I don't really know. You can read the book until you're crazy and download a bunch of videos and go to Light Vortex and figure it out. The thing is, if you make small changes up here, whether 2, 1.5, 3, you'll see the result. And if it's the result you like I really like this one, then let me close this now. Then you can work from there. So at this point, I would just go image, I would go geometry, flip 180 for it's more aesthetically pretty. There we go. I would minimize all these, get them out of the way. For some of you guys who have been following my tutorial, you'd probably want to go back to the O3 HA, remove a little bit of noise, bring in a little bit more contrast, a little HDR, and whatever you want. Individually, then assemble them together. Or some people assemble them together and then they work on them. But if you work on the noise here, that's a great idea. Minimize. If you work on the noise here, that's a good idea. Now I'm going to show you something. You know how we used to make masks by going extract luminance? Here, I'm just going to hit it. Because this is now nice RGB and you can actually extract luminance. Alright, so here we go. And so you take it and you pull it and you drag it, drop it here. And now you have a mask, but look how you can barely see the nebula. I mean, I can't barely see it. If I was to invert this to work on the background, I would also be working on the nebula. We don't want to do that. So, the other thing you could do, let's go back to this, mask, remove. I know I'm going a little fast, but you guys are not beginners anymore. You've been following me for like 6 months. Let's do this here, and we're going to open up STF. Right here, my mouse is losing its power here. STF and levels. Remember how we did this before? We're going to stretch the luminance channel for a second. Just stretch it. Didn't do much stretching, did it? And apply it, drag and drop, reset it. Okay, drag. We can close this. And remember to drag your new stretched luminance right on the edge and drop it. Now, again, we got a little bit more nebula, and we protected the background somewhat, but there has to be a way to do that even better. And that's why we're here on intermediate series and not beginners. So we're going to close this. Now we're going to close this, because this is the mask, and it's effective, not effective enough. Yeah, exactly. So here we are. We're back to normal. What I want you guys to do is open up range selection. Range select. Okay, real-time preview. That should be completely washed out. All right, stretch your box. Start the lower limit. I'm going to just tell you what you want to do. You want to bring in just the nebula and the stars, and you want to completely wash out the background. So here comes the nebula now. Here it is, nice and slow. All right, so there it is. At what point you start will depend on how many stars are in the background. See that? As long as it's pitch black here, that's going to be the noise that we can deal with. As long as it's bright, bright white, that will be protected when we're attacking the noise. So, of course, the more aggressive you are, the more you bite into the nebula, and we don't want that. So, maybe, this is 24,000. So, probably 23,750. That's not bad. It's still a bit high. That's 2,300. Well, I'm doing it this way, but 23,250. Too much. So I have to be more aggressive. 23,800. That's not too bad. Okay, so there's still a little bit of noise that I'm collecting that I shouldn't be, but I just wanted to get the nebula and the flux on the outer edges. That's pretty good. Now, see where it says smoothness? We're going to bring that right up to about 40 or 45. So now the nebula can be worked with, the background can be worked with, depending on if we go forward or invert. So that's pretty good. Even at this point, you can still play with the 23,800, maybe 23,900. That made this. It just squeezed the nebula a little bit more. Again, what's the purpose of smoothing? Well, if you do this, you start working on it. It's this edge of the nebula here versus the background of the stars. It's going to be really. It'll be harsh. There'll be too much of a difference. All this is doing is okay. Here we go. For those who are Photoshop, this is feather, and I'm talking feather 40, 50 here. Okay, good. So we're done with this. We're going to close only the preview and say create a mask that lets us only see the veil. Okay, there it is. Let's make it a little smaller. There we go. It's out of the way. Now, I believe you can also open up levels. Make sure you select the mask. Darken that mask a bit. Of course, this is just a preview, so before, after, close it, drag and drop. And now we're going to take this mask and see if it fits over top of our veil. And if so, what is it going to do for us? Well, looky here. We see the entire veil, some of the other flux, and this is the point where you can go, if you go Control K, hide, unhide, hide, unhide, unhide, unhide. But if you go Control Shift I, now the nebula is protected, the flux is protected, but the stars are now vulnerable to noise reduction. And this is where you come here, and I'm done. There's no sense going any further because you guys know what happens from here. You do your ACDNR if you want, or you can go to TGV denoise if you wish and crank up the values. All of that makes it so this is really noise reduction. Now once you've done that, and I'm not going to do it, but let's say you did, and you come back to your nebula, Control K, now the nebula is protected, but now we don't want to protect it, we want to see it. There it is. Control K, just, by the way, all this Control K stuff is just mask, show, mask, hide. So mask, show. So if we went here, and this is, now I'm way past this whole lesson, which was about just combining those two images. But I'm just taking a little bit step further. At this point here, you can start doing your local contrast. I'm just going to, just real quick, just winging it real quick. Just do that, and it gives it a little bit of snappiness. There it is. It just brightens up, and the lanes, all these veils start coming. There's 100 things you can do, and you guys have gone through a lot of the videos, so you can do this, then HDR, then unsharp mask, and then you're going to want to use some noise reduction on the nebula, because every time you hit it with these modules, it just crunches the numbers, and it can get rough back there. So what did we learn? Well, you can calibrate all your light HA, your darks, and your flats, and if you use bias, go ahead and add those. That'll create all your masters, your master light. Then your O3, you get all your O3, that's only 2 subs. It's narrowband, no sulfur. If you have sulfur, then do all 3. But at this point, a lot of people are just doing HAO3, a lot of people. And they love the result. And once you have those 2 frames, you bring them up here, you open this up, you open that up. You can work on them right away, make sure they're stretched. In this case, this one, I don't think I stretched it because you still see the green line here. All right, let me just close this. So in any event, make sure that they're stretched first and you're worked on. Then you open up PixelMath, which is right here, and enter hydrogen alpha for red, hydrogen alpha times O3 for green, times 1.5, or 1, or 2, or divide by 2, depends. Try different things. And finally, O3 again for blue, so you have green and blue on O3, but this is a mixture of HA and O3, which is nice. And you end up getting this beautiful picture here. Oops, here I go again. Fairly well calibrated picture. Now, one last thing before I close this, I should say one last step. Let me remove this again. Let me go to mask. Remove the mask. Don't forget, once you have this image, and I've done too much work on it, but if I didn't have, don't forget to zoom right in and find a spot where it's nice and quiet and collect this. Make sure you neutralize the background by using this little, where'd it go? It was here. Background neutralization is right down here. So do this, select preview 1. Okay, zoom out a bit, drag and drop. You won't even see how subtle it is, but there it is. There it is. It has been adjusted. From here you can add all kinds of color. You can saturate. And again, with the mask, the range mask I showed you, remember I had this? Had you had this on here, and you still could, I suppose, and minimize that, and Control K, but if you did this and invert it, and now we're just dealing with the background, again I'm going to just Control K to hide it, just going to do something for a second here. I'll show you why. And you say, well, okay, that's fine. The background seems purple. Well, it kind of is. I mean, that's how the pixel expressions work. But if you went to your levels, okay, and you look at the preview for that, well, that was great. Went too high. And we're inverted here. So this background being, just hold on, so I'm just going to grab this again. Keep in mind you can do this anytime with Pixinsight. Whatever you change here changes up above right away, which I really like it. So see the purple here? See the red and the green and blue? You can just choose a specific color. If you don't like how red it is, just bring it down. And now you're equalizing the RGB. Now it's more blue, but that's okay, because even the blue and the green can either be emphasized or de-emphasized. In our case, we want all the colors to go one on top of each other. So if I do this, of course there's too, look up here, there's too much green. So now I'm going to control the green color and bring it over top so that everything is pretty well matched evenly in terms of R, G, and B. If I go too much, it'll be green. If I go that way, it'll be too purple. So this is about where I want it. Close your window, go back to RGB, and drag this new aligned RGB, and watch your background. The nebula will not even change. Look at the nebula, still the way it was, nothing. But now your background looks like the natural background of sky at night. To prove that, you select it, you go Control K. See how the nebula was not affected by the range selection mask, but the background is now neutralized to a nice darker grayish black. I'm done. I hope this wasn't too confusing. Go over it a couple of times and skip over what's not important to you and keep the things that you learned. That's how I do it. Again, here, mask, remove, put this back up in full size. And isn't that nice? That is excellent, excellent astrophotography from Steve Balke, and he's using a Explore Scientific 102 refractor, Altair Hypercam 183 mono, and some 36 millimeter 6 nanometer narrowband filters, that HA OIII, and he probably has a sulfur also. So great data set, great stars, really tight. Color is it's bang on, and focus is so important. I can't emphasize focus more than this example here. And of course, if you did LRGB, you wouldn't have done actually anything different, but it's going to be a bit different. If anybody else wants to submit LRGB 12 files of each, in other words, 12L, 12R, 12G, 12B, you're also going to have to supply 12 darks and 12 flats. And if you're into bias guy, then you're going to be 12 bias, and all that's going to be a huge video of an hour long, how to completely process LRGB one filter at a time, one set data set at a time, and then ending up with just one luminance, 3 RGBs, combining all those into one full frame, either by PixelMath or by LRG combined. And that's a lot of work. Normally 8 to 10 hours, easily. So anyways, thanks for watching. Thank you, Steve, for your data set of the veil, taken just a few weeks ago. And I'm going to post a link on the bottom for those who want to see more of Steve's work. Also, don't forget to subscribe down below and hit that little bell to get more notifications. And I really enjoyed making those. I hope you did. And I hope it wasn't too long and too complicated. And yes, we made a lot of mistakes, and we lost Pixinsight, but it came back. And in the end, we fixed it. So there it is. Just gonna, before I close that, in workload, I think there might be something, another version of that, just a little brighter, a little darker. No, it's about the same. So there it is. This is really, really nice. About the same value as the other one. This is not a finished product. It's actually the beginning. From here, you would actually process this, but there's some that we've all done together, which was nice. So I'm not even going to save this. No, I'm going to lose everything. Okay. Thanks, guys. I'm going to pause this. Shut this off. Again, thanks for watching. and tell everyone you know, and there'll be more videos coming. Some are going to get pretty technical, so I'm almost going to jump from intermediate to advanced, and I am not advanced. So one of the big ones is going to be luminance gradients removal when there's bad gradients on a mono frame, on a luminance frame. It's some kind of a DBE gradial or radial extraction. Never done that. And also, if you ever have a frame, do you ever have a sub when you're completely finished and all your hot pixels are still there? Those red blips and blue blips, and go, oh no, now what? That means the darks didn't work. It means you have to scrap all 8 hours of imaging. No, there's also cosmetic correction we can look at. I'll do a video on that, but I'll show you something else that may work in this instance. And look at, there's another 3 or 4 videos coming. Thank you. Bye for now. See you on the flip side.